Lisa.
Hey.
Hello friends, I know it has been forever since I've done a review for any damn thing, but of course I'm going to come back for the dolls. The reunion part 1 just aired yesterday. As we know, it was absolutely fantastic. I don't think that my lack of doing videos had anything to do with my dislike for the season, because I thought the season was really good. However, I clocked really early on that BRONWYN was a mess, and y'all know I just was not living for BRONWYN. Whitney got very very annoying to me. Meeting Todd made the whole BRONWYN thing even worse for me. And then I just took an issue with a lot this season. But that being said, having clocked the BRONWYN thing so early and then seeing the tides turn for a lot of people, not all people, but a lot of people in the viewership, where they're like, oh, I like BRONWYN, but now I don't really know. It just felt like, you know, when you go see a movie or you read a book and it's just like you can tell the ending, so you kind of are not as interested. So that's kind of where I was. I was still watching it, interested in the show, but I wasn't interested in talking about it because the stuff that was playing out, in my opinion, was stuff that I had already clocked. So that was really the tea on that. As far as a whole for this season, I have 3 issues that we'll touch on in these 3 parts of the reunion. So I feel like I can sum up the season. And essentially, I have an issue with the whole BRONWYN thing, as we already know. I have an issue with the confirmation of bias against Lisa. And then I have an issue with the lack of accountability for the nastiness and the way that Mary has always showed up and presented on this show to be mean. Can Mary be a great addition to the show and a nice lady and have all of these things? Absolutely, 2 things can be true. But also, I think that Mary needs to be held accountable for being mean when they're going at other housewives on this show and calling them and alleging them to be mean girls or all these other things. I don't like that. And so I'm having an issue with that as well. But we're going to touch on it. But that being said, you know, I'm fine. Thank you, everybody, for checking in and asking me to do a review. I can only do it when I just feel so compelled to talk about something, and as I've already explained. And, you know, I did get a new phone. You know, the new iPhones have a new charging thing, so my microphone is not working for this phone, so I apologize, the sound sucks. And I apologize for the delay, but let's get into it. So we walk in, everybody says their hellos, we do our intros. They kind of immediately jump in, which I appreciate it. And honestly, I haven't watched the, you know, they typically do like an unedited version on Peacock. I haven't watched that yet, so if there's more on there, I would like to see it, and I will watch this part 1 again, so I probably will. But this is based off the version that was shown on Bravo. And, you know, Andy says, does anybody want to set intentions? You know, I took a note that Whitney says she wants to get to the root of the issue with Lisa and kind of figure out what's going on. I did note that she also spoke to Lisa when she came onto the stage, so I guess there's this intention for Whitney to get somewhere with Lisa, but she's also very inflammatory every time she talks to Lisa and very accusatory. So it's more so like, Lisa, just take the blame and let's move on. And we're gonna get to that a little bit more later in general. So I don't think that works, but it was interesting to hear that. But my response to that is, Whitney, you are the problem between you and Lisa. And I do feel like that's echoed when they start talking a little bit about the accusations with the Lisa and the Whitney thing, which is just so stupid this season. I have really talked about for as long as we did with the whole Alibaba thing. I just really feel like that was dumb, and I don't really understand why Lisa is the one that caught the flack for it when Meredith was the first one to bring it up on camera, right? I don't think it needs to be talked about at all, but I think it spoke volumes that it was like, oh, Lisa did this. And there was no proof to be found. You know, Andy asked Lisa, did she go the full extent with her investigator? And Lisa explains, which they barely were going to let her do. She explains, well, I told Whitney, tell me what you have and give it to me, and we can work in tangent with each other. I'm going to get my investigator, and whoever the hell you're working with, they can work together to get things together. But Whitney never gave me any proof. Whitney never gave me any confirmation. Whitney never gave me any contact information for this alleged person that gave her the proof. So again, they're trying to put it on Lisa, but Whitney didn't have anything to begin with. Whitney says, well, get it from your friend, your bestie, like Meredith has it, like get it from Meredith. And it's like, girl, no, I want to get it from you. Like, you said you had it, so you should be giving it up. So she kind of got off of that a little bit easy. But again, it was a very stupid argument to have, and nobody really cares. we get to the whole Angie thing between Heather and Heather going back and telling Lisa what Angie said about her parenting. And I don't dislike Angie at all, but I dislike the fact that Angie is still trying to assert that Heather made it worse. Any way that you twist it, you can't say that Heather made it worse. Because at the end of the day, the only way that you're going to be able to explain it to me and to anybody is to say, well, Heather kind of exacerbated the information because she ran with it. Like, she ran and she told Lisa. You can't blame her for that. It is what it is. Angie should not have said it. I think that is such low-hanging fruit. I think it's crazy to blame Heather for going and repeating something that Angie should not have said in the first place. And whether Heather would have told Lisa or not, Lisa would have found out, whether it had been then or now, because she's on the TV show and she's going to watch the TV show. And whether she watched it or not, it's going to come up on social media. And whether she sees it on social media or not, it's going to come up at the reunion. So she's going to know regardless. So all of that being said, it's such a weak argument to say that Heather made it worse by repeating what Angie said, because also they played the clips back to back at the reunion and Heather said verbatim what Angie said. She didn't add anything extra on it. She didn't add any interpretations. Angie said it. And Angie's not taking any ownership for it. But even still, Lisa's like, girl, like, whatever. Let's not talk about it. Like, I gave you a pass. Like, we're sitting here trying to argue about it. You're trying to litigate it. I gave you a pass. Let's move on. She's not going to get credit for that either, though. So they move into this thing of, and I really didn't pay attention to this on social media, but when Angie said some things about Lisa, I don't think I ever even saw the tweet, but she alleged in a tweet or some tweets that Lisa's G-Wagon had been repossessed and that also that Lisa was cheating on her husband. And Angie's asking her, well, where did this come from? Because y'all seem like y'all were in a good place. And she goes to Meredith. So I'm already like, okay, well, this is unsubstantiated because what does Meredith have to do with a beef between you and Lisa? But I let her explain. And, she says basically Meredith and her had a back and forth where Meredith called her a backup dancer. They argue about that for 10 minutes, which is so stupid because they've been showing that video since last season of Angie and Monica dancing behind backup for Jen in this video. Like, she was a backup dancer for Jen in this video. That is a fact. So I don't understand why we're having this conversation about it. It sounds really dumb, and I don't understand why Angie's not being held accountable for something so stupid. Andy did try, but the fans, the viewers, like, y'all have blown my mind this season, honestly. If last season was not enough with Monica. But anywho, so basically, in response to that, Meredith and Angie were going back and forth on Twitter, and Meredith said something about the scroll, and the only scroll she acknowledges, she, made reference to her bat mitzvah or whatever the hell. And Lisa, because she's Jewish or whatever the hell, she found that to be funny. So she responded to the tweet and said, Mazel Tov. That has nothing to do with Angie. It has nothing to do with Angie. It has nothing to do with Angie. There's no way to spin that. I said Mazel Tov because I thought it was funny. It was a kiki. She said that. It was a kiki. It was. And you respond to that by saying that my car was repossessed and that my husband was cheating on me. But she's not going to catch any flack for that either, right? Like, and then at insult to injury, they're like, well, Angie, where'd you even get that from? She says, I heard it at dinner. And Heather's like, well, you told me that Bronwyn told you that. And she said, yeah, Bronwyn told me at dinner. So that's Bronwyn talking more shit about Lisa. Angie and Bronwyn talking more shit about Lisa, but they're not going to catch any flack for it. If we're doing a tally, somebody do a tally for me, because I'm not going to do it. I already have my opinion. But if we're doing a tally on bad friends or mean girls, let me know where we're at. So I guess there was a thing where, I didn't pay attention to this either, but there's a thing where Bronwyn was talking about wearing the alleged jewelry to the reunion. And it was so funny because if you go back to my review of that first part of the trip, I believe it was, the only part of the trip that I did, I was confused that they even had that jeweler come out to the desert, or however they explained it, from Los Angeles, I believe it was, to show them this jewelry, and they hadn't even bought it on the spot. And I did say at that time, like, I understand the old concept of housewives, like, show glamour, and like maybe there's a lot of stuff that's not rationalized and doesn't make sense, sure. But in 2024, I feel like we need to add some reasonableness back into the show. Like, you can't just do all this random stuff. And so I was, at that time, trying to understand this whole jeweler thing. So it's interesting to me that it's become such a topic. And we come to find out that I guess people were disputing that she had even bought it. And Lisa echoes like, well, the jeweler told me that you didn't buy it. Like, I know her. She texted me and told me that you didn't buy it. And all four of them on that couch, Angie, Mary, Bronwyn, and Whitney, in that order. Whitney at the end. We're going to get to that. They're all sharing the same head, sharing the same brain, sharing the same opinion. And each of them individually asked, some of them more than once, well, why would she text you about it? Because she did. Because she did. Because she knows me. Obviously, she watches the show. She has a bone to pick with Bronwyn. She sees that me and Bronwyn are not getting along on the show, so she texts me about it. But they're trying to make it a Lisa thing again, like, oh, well, Lisa must have reached out to her, and Bronwyn went on Watch What Happens Live after and was like, there was some speculation that Lisa was acting behind a blog page and she was texting the jeweler. Girl, none of that. None of that. She texted me. Lisa even hands her phone to Andy. Andy's like, there are receipts. Like, it does say this. And Bronwyn asks again, after the text I read, well, why would she reach out to you? It's not between you and her. It's between me and her. She texted me, girl. What you telling me for? Go have a conversation with her. Girl. And then to follow up, a little bit of tea for y'all. The story has changed completely now on Watch What Happens Live. So now we got the season, we got Twitter, we got the reunion, and now the story changes again on Watch What Happens Live. And Bronwyn says, well, when we did the scene, we just felt like there's so much going on in the economy that it would be irresponsible for us to be buying such expensive jewelry. So we decided to scale it down. And we had her making a smaller version of that necklace and a smaller version of that earrings that we were still going to buy for an exorbitant amount of money that people still don't have. Not to mention you're buying it from a jeweler in Los Angeles where they just had half of the damn city burned down. But okay, we scaled it back. So now we're gonna buy those. But then, once we learned what happened at the reunion, we decided not to buy anything at all. So Andy says, so you never bought the jewelry at all? She says, no. Now the story has changed. Like, girl, you didn't buy it. And that's all Lisa said. And that's all the jeweler said. And that's all the streets said. So why are we talking about this? So we talk a little bit about Lisa and Bronwyn's friendship, and they both say that they haven't talked in a little bit over a month. I noticed that they have unfollowed each other on Instagram kind of midway through the season. And basically Bronwyn tries to get this whole snarky thing in, like, well, at the time I felt like she wasn't being a friend to me and I was kind of chasing after her, but then afterwards I realized that I was just a surface level friend to her. And the gotcha is Lisa agrees, like, yeah, we were just social friends, like we were very surface level friends, like it wasn't that deep. And then nobody has anything else to say. Pin drop. But I do find it interesting that she says she was chasing Lisa. I will give her acknowledgement, and I'm jumping ahead a little bit, because this comes when she talks about her relationship with Todd. She does say that she feels like she's always chasing for Todd's approval. And I think that we can use that as context clues to say, hey, this is a big insecurity of Bronwyn, which a lot of people have, right? And it feels like she chases for everybody's approval. It feels like that's why she goes into the group and she, does all this mess and does all these things for attention. And she even embellishes sometimes. That's what people do when they're crying out for attention and they want to be recognized. And then Bronwyn takes it the extra mile of if the very smallest thing happens, no matter what, her part in the situation is she needs somebody to take her side, no matter what, because she needs that acknowledgement and she needs that acceptance. And I can understand that being frustrating to Lisa or to anybody, because it's frustrating to me, because it's like, why do you need that? You're a grown person. Understandably, we all have trauma, we all have insecurities, we all have things, but it's up to you to work on. And I don't like when people have those issues and then try to project it and make it as though somebody is doing something to them because they're not filling them up the way that you need to be filling yourself up. It's not Lisa's job to fill Bronwyn up. And if we were all to sit down and put our confirmation bias aside about how we just don't like Lisa and she's so surface, we will understand that Bronwyn is putting an obligation on Lisa that is not Lisa's obligation to fulfill. They then moved from the whole Bronwyn thing into like Heather's issue with Bronwyn, and I love that Heather kept it short and sweet. She's like, look, I got a quick read on Bronwyn. Like, I knew she was full of shit from day one, as did I. And at the end of the day, she's like, I don't regret it. And I was waiting to see if Whitney was going to come back on some things. Like, once she finally saw from those first couple episodes that Bronwyn was being messy in the car, she does almost hold Bronwyn's feet to the fire and say, it doesn't feel like it felt like I was supporting you on the show, but you wouldn't claim me as a friend publicly. Blame it on Lisa. When in doubt, blame it on Lisa. And Bronwyn says, well, I had this loyalty to Lisa and I always prioritize Lisa. So as a result, I wasn't able to give that to you. Blah, 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 blah. It's not a Lisa thing. The situation where you're sitting in the car and you're voluntarily reading Whitney and then went back to Whitney and gave her some bullshit, that's a you thing. That doesn't have anything to do with Lisa. But I'm glad that, we don't know if in that moment Lisa reacted or said anything back. But I'm glad that from what we saw on the reunion, she didn't say anything at all, because that's bullshit. And if you're sitting there and you're listening and there's a question asked about you and Heather, why are you bringing up Lisa? And Heather further clocks, I knew that when Bronwyn came to my house, it was just a move. It was a move to be made. At the end of the day, she felt like, and I don't know how much of this is true, but she felt like she wasn't invited on the trip regardless. She wasn't going regardless. But Bronwyn came to her house just to make a scene. And I wouldn't doubt that. I feel like Bronwyn is full of shit. I don't think that she's a bad person. I hope that nobody's taking this to mean that. And I think that she's great for the show. I don't know if I've said that, but I think that she's full of shit. And I think that when people are full of shit, we need to call them on it. Lisa has moments of being full of shit. But I think that this whole general thing from season 1, where we make Lisa the scapegoat and the bad guy because we don't like her temperament and because she can be dismissive and because she's just the one to go after, it's gotten old for me. Like, it's gotten so old. We need to start holding other people accountable. So that being said, this really grinded my gears. So we get this scene where Andy asks Heather a viewer question. Who knows where these questions come from, child? But essentially, somebody's asking Heather, how has her weight loss made her a mean girl? And Heather can be a lot of things, but I think to call her a mean girl is absurd. Even in the first 3-4 seasons where I didn't like Heather at all, I never would assess her as being a mean girl. And before I even heard this, so it's not a retaliatory argument, before I even heard this, I'm watching the season, and I'm just like, the way that Mary and Bronwyn and Whitney move, it's like a mean girl clique. And Angie's over there too, but I'm able to say I don't think that Angie is a mean person. I think Angie's a follower, and I think that Angie has the capacity to say nasty things, but I don't think she's a mean person. Whereas Mary, Whitney, and Bronwyn, I think, do mean girl things and have mean girl tendencies, specifically Mary. So I love, before I get to what I want to say, I love the way that Heather answered the question, because it was something that I had not thought about, but her saying it made perfect sense to me. I think Heather in the first few seasons was way more unbearable than she is now, because she really was coming off pretty mean and nasty, and it didn't really seem like it had a lot of context to it. Like, I didn't know why she was the way that she was. Now, I don't see it that way. That's why I also don't agree with people who are saying that Heather is like following up behind Lisa. Heather, to me, has been one of the most independent runners on this show. Notwithstanding, of course, she had her stuff with Jen, but I still feel like Heather has always had her own opinion and stood on her own. And I feel like, and it was echoed by Mary, I feel like all she's doing now is exercising independence and being confident. It's nothing mean about her. And I think it's absurd to be able to look at Heather and say that she's a mean girl while you've watched Mary for the last few seasons say some of the meanest, nastiest things that you can say about people. Yes, they've been entertaining, but to have called Heather inbred, say that she looks inbred, and to stand on it, to say that Whitney was a racist last season just because she was in the Mormon church and you have no other way of substantiating it, it's crazy to me. To bully, she bullied, let's call it a thing, she was bullying Brittany all season long. Brittany is the weakest link, and she was bullying Brittany because it was easy. It was the easiest way to get a punchline in, and she knew that nobody was going to say anything to her. Be honest. Mary is a bully, and I get it. Hurt people, all of those things. Two things can be true. You've been hurt before. That sucks. That's unfortunate. Mary needs to talk to somebody. Mary needs help. Mary needs prayer. She needs uplifting. Mary can be a wonderful woman, but she's also mean, and she's also a bully. And I think it's crazy that nobody ever holds her accountable for that. And that pisses me off. And it makes the show really hard to watch, if I'm being honest. So we get to this whole thing between Bronwyn and Lisa. And the segue here was kind of weird to me because I could hear, I was like, don't go there, don't go there, don't go there, don't do that. Because I've been waiting, even during the season, I was getting little inklings. And I'm like, is Bronwyn going to get to a point where she starts trying to blame Lisa for this whole Gwen and her grandparents thing? Because that to me will be egregious. Like, that to me would be the nail in the coffin for Bronwyn, because I'm like, now you are literally just giving me Karen energy. Like, you're being inflammatory, you're making an issue, and it's a woe is me, woe is me, woe is me, that type of thing. That is my opinion. I will dig into what has said, but what was said at the reunion. Prior to this, that was my standpoint. Looking at it now, essentially, Bronwyn has an issue, as she already has during the season, with a different thing that Lisa won't just say, Bronwyn's right, or I understand what Bronwyn is saying, or like, I get why Bronwyn will be hurt, without saying that she understands the other side. First of all, I think it's a very childish mindset to think that if somebody says they see both sides, they're defending the other side. And we've been seeing that all season long, from the viewers and from the cast. That is childish. We have to understand that. If I tell somebody something, and at the very least they can tell me, I see where you're coming from, but I see both sides, I don't see the issue with that. I may be upset with it and feel some type of way because I think it's human nature to say, hey, I just want somebody to take my side. And given the context we have for Bronwyn, where, you know, she wants approval and she wants people to take her side. Got it. But that has everything, again, to do with you. It has nothing to do with Lisa. And at the very least, if Lisa was able to say, I see where you're coming from, and I hurt for you, and I hurt for the other side. I hurt for you, and I hurt for the other side. I just can't see the issue with that. I don't think anybody's going to be able to get. I waited until my friend watched the episode today to do this video and to assess, because I told her, my best friend, I'm like, I don't see the issue, and I'm trying, because I pride myself on not being biased. I don't want to be biased. I don't want to have a confirmation bias. I'm going to let Lisa be wrong when she's wrong, whether I like the other party or not, but I don't see the issue. Moving forward on that, Bronwyn does provide some context and says something that we didn't see at deleted scene. When they were talking at the spa, she explained, you know, the situation where they acted like nothing ever happened. She was supposed to go have the child and then whatever. And her father allegedly called Gwen's grandparents, and told them that the child, or left a voicemail, and told them that the child had been born, and they never reached out after that. Whereas Lisa had learned, or was told by the grandparents, that they had believed that Bronwyn had a miscarriage. There aren't too many particulars given, but she said to Bronwyn, I think that they were told, or I think that they thought that you had a miscarriage. That was it. There's no other context given. So as you look at it right there without anything further, that's two sides to a story as it goes. And Lisa is used to this side of the story with the grandparents, right? Oh, well, I think that they thought you had a miscarriage. That's not devaluing anything or taking anything away from Bronwyn. This is news to Lisa. This is new news. This is subsequent news that she's receiving from Bronwyn. This is a subsequent side of the story. And it's like, oh, well, now I'm confused. So boom, fine. Then we move to the after show that was filmed after that, and Lisa is explaining the situation. I didn't watch the after show, it's not my jam, but from what I understand and from what I saw, she's asked, like, what is the circumstance? Like, what happened? And she's like, well, you know, the grandparents said this, and this is their stance on it, blah, blah, blah. She never said, I believe the grandparents. She never said Bronwyn faked the miscarriage. She never said the family said that she faked the miscarriage. She never said the family made up the miscarriage. She never said any of those things. So based off of what Lisa said alone on the after show, all that any of us can do, including Bronwyn, is interpret. Bronwyn has more right than anybody because she's involved in the situation. Her feelings are involved. Her family is involved. Most importantly, her daughter's involved. Got it. But to use, this is what I mean by inflammatory language. You're asking Lisa to apologize for saying what she said on the after show, because Bronwyn feels two things about this whole Lisa and Gwen's grandparent situation. And it's evidenced by what she said. You got to piece it all together. It's evidenced by what she said during the season. It's evidenced by what she said on the reunion. It's evidenced by they're having this new back and forth issue on Instagram or whatever the hell. And Bronwyn typed this whole book about the issue, breaking down the issue. And she has two issues. Her first issue is that Lisa is just not taking her side on it. Just not saying like, oh my God, they're wrong, they're terrible people. I believe Bronwyn, and Bronwyn is the one. Her second issue is Lisa repeated in some fashion this whole miscarriage story that she got from the parents. And as a result, now the world is running with rumors about her, such as she was messing with Gwen's father when he was married and all this. None of that has anything to do with Lisa. And we know that. Bronwyn knows that. The audience knows that. Nobody can sit here, and no matter how much you don't like Lisa, no matter how much you like Bronwyn, no matter how much you like Gwen, no matter how much you dislike Gwen's grandparents, no matter how much the sky is blue, nobody can sit here and say that Lisa did anything to Bronwyn as it pertains to this grandparents issue. You can't. You can't. You can't. There is an argument to be made, right? Like I had a moment where I said, Lisa, just apologize. Because it's one of those things where it's just like, it is a lose-lose, like Heather was saying, and we're not going to get around it. And it does have to do with Bronwyn's child, so it's obviously going to be a sensitive topic all around. I would apologize as it pertains to Gwen. But I can understand Lisa not apologizing to Bronwyn because while she's sitting here asking for an apology, she does the same thing Whitney does with Lisa. She'll say, I need you to give me an apology because you did this to me. And then they'll add on the accusatory part. You know what you're doing. You did it on purpose. You've been on TV for long enough. You knew that the world was going to run with this. Girl, I'm not thinking about none of that. Honestly, and I'm not going to sit here and act like I don't think Lisa does stuff on purpose, but I don't think that Lisa's sitting here thinking, oh my God, let me create a story that Bronwyn faked a miscarriage. And you know that. Like, that's absurd. So I think it's even crazier to come to somebody and say, hey, you did something that hurt me, and then add an accusation on there and expect them to apologize to you. It's just like when they were on the trip. And Lisa's having that back and forth with Whitney, and John says, well, ask her a question. Try asking her a question. Ask her, did she did it? Did she do it to you? Because that's different than coming to somebody saying, you did this, you know what you were doing, you intentionally did it, you maliciously did it, now apologize. I'm not going to apologize either. Because at the end of the day, that's what Lisa's trying to explain to y'all. I do feel bad. I feel bad for you, and I feel bad for his parents. I've been saying that the longest time, but I can't sit here and apologize to you for insinuating that you faked the miscarriage or insinuating that you messed with a married man or any of the crazy stuff that you're saying because I did not do that. You're just interpreting it that way. And you're not saying that it makes me feel that way, and that's the way that it came off to me. That'd be different as well. When I heard you say it, Lisa, I interpreted it this way. It made me feel as if you were saying this. You're saying you did it, you know you did it, you're manipulative, you were being malicious, and you did it on purpose. Now apologize. Hell no. So in that, I can't. Like, I'm trying to do it for y'all. I'm trying to do it for non-biased sake. I'm trying to do it for video sake, but I don't give a damn. Like, Lisa didn't do anything to Bronwyn in this situation. And anybody, I'm still open to, not from Bronwyn. I don't want to hear it. And I don't want to hear the girls on Twitter. If y'all feel like there's a good argument to be made outside of what I've touched on in the YouTube comments, please let me know. Because like I told you, I asked my best friend before I even came here, and she didn't agree either. She said, she's like, I feel like Lisa just should have apologized. That's not a good enough answer for me. It's not. Like, when you know that there's somebody like Bronwyn who's manipulative and tries to egg stuff on and lies and it just makes stuff an issue, and you're literally, she just said it in black and white ink on Instagram. Go check it out. She said, because Lisa said that on the after show, now there are rumors that I messed with a married man. Ain't nobody saying nothing about that. Lisa ain't saying nothing about that. So to put that on Lisa, I think is egregious. And I'm not apologizing for that. And I don't fault Lisa for it. Let's move on. So then the husbands come out. I will say I begged and pleaded that we did not have husbands. I think it's on my other reviews too. Like, I don't want to hear from the husbands. I know they were in a lot of drama, but I feel like they handled things like children, just like the women did, and I didn't enjoy it, and I didn't want to hear more doubling down on it in the reunion. That said, we get Todd to come out, and Andy's asking Todd and Bronwyn about their relationship dynamic based on what we saw on the show. It was not cute, and their answers to me, very performative, very politician-like, especially coming off of an election year. We've heard the bullshit, we've heard the going around in circles, and we've watched enough Housewives to know that every couple goes through a thing and they come back and say, but now we're even stronger than ever. And I love that Andy, if you're not paying attention, there's a whole segment where Andy's going back and forth asking them, well, what do you think about this? Well, how did this affect things? Well, what about this? Because they're trying to button it up really quickly and say, we're in a better place. We realized how we talked to each other. It wasn't great. We're in a better place. But what about this? What about this? Because we're clocking the bullshit. It was very performative and it was bullshit. At the end of the day, everybody knows, including Todd's wife, who said it on national television, that Todd is an asshole. I just want us to get rid of the bias and be able to say things as they are. Todd is an asshole. We have to be honest. And then we move forward, and Andy's asking Todd for a reason. Clock this. He's asking Todd for a reason. Did you guys have a conversation about what was off limits before you came on the show? Because Todd was so adversarial to everything as it pertains to his wife on this show. You're adversarial to everything as it pertains to your wife and her job. Because just like you say, everything is so dramatic and messy, she's 50% involved in it, if not more. So you're being adversarial towards that. So please tell me, was there a conversation had? And he uses this to start segueing, just like his wife does, into the Gwen situation. And John clocks it. He's like, well, yeah, what's off limits for us was discussing personal information like the Gwen stuff. John clocks it, and he's like, but who brought it up? But who brought it up? And we're not discussing that. Bronwyn brought it up. She's admitted. She brought it up. She's admitted it. It's in black and white ink. It's on her Instagram. Go check it out. I don't know if it's a story. It'll be somewhere. Go find it. She's admitted it. She brought it up. And more context is she brought it up in a conversation that they were having off camera, but with production. So as a result, she knew that it was going to have to come to the show. And not by way of Lisa. So she's not upset with Lisa for bringing it to the show. She couldn't possibly be, because Lisa did not bring it to the show. You brought it to the show, effectively. And as a result, they have to ask Lisa, because she's an interested party. She's part of it. She's part of the story. She has to have the conversation about it. And all that she did was tell her experience and tell what she knew. That's it. All she did was tell her experience and tell what she knew. And now we're supposed to demonize Lisa for that? Because as a result, you're receiving pushback, and you just want Lisa to blindly take your side as you've been begging her to all season long. It's not Lisa's fault. It's not Lisa's fault. And it's crazy that she would come on TV and do that. But there are people like that. They're going to blame everybody else for their issues, and they're going to do anything possible. We've seen Bronwyn stick her foot out and pull it back. Stick her foot out and pull it back. Stick her foot. She's a backtracker. She lies. She manipulates situations, and she embellishes stories. I don't think she's embellishing anything as it pertains to Gwen and what the family did and all that stuff. I don't think that at all. I definitely understand that. I get where she's coming from. I don't really have a doubt about that. But I also don't think it's an issue for Lisa to say, okay, well, this is what they told me. I know them. I've known them for a long time. Now I'm subsequently learning your situation. It's a lot to take on at once. And the best that I can do as a third party who's just hearing the information like this is say I understand where both parties are coming from. Nobody said they don't believe Bronwyn. Nobody said that. So stop trying to demonize Lisa for talking about something that you brought to camera. You brought it up. Like, I feel like I've touched every single point that I could. If anybody can explain to me what Lisa did wrong with the Gwen's grandparents situation, I'm open to hear it. But if it's an answer of, well, she could have just apologized, I don't want to hear that, because I already said that. So I get it. She could have just apologized, but I completely understand why she didn't. And I don't fault her for it. I think the apology, as I've already said, and I'll make it clear, the apology could have gone to how this has affected Gwen. Period. And that's all I have. I've had a lot of technical difficulties, y'all. Like my mic, like I said, not here. CapCut had disappeared. So I didn't even know if I was going to be able to create videos. TikTok had disappeared. Now that CapCut disappeared, it's not on the App Store anymore. So I don't even know how to go about editing this video. But I'm going to get it to y'all. I'm sorry that I've been screaming and yelling, but I haven't done one of these in a long time. And the reunion part one was really good. And I have very strong feelings, like I said, about this season, about this cast, and about the viewership, and the confirmation bias, and the lack of accountability. But that was just part one. I thought it was really good. We got a lot in, and I'm excited to see what happens next. So I will see y'all when I'm hooting and hollering again next week.